Welcome to the inquiryHub Biology Distance Learning Support webinar. The PDF of this presentation slideshow is available on the Louisiana Believes website and includes active links to the resources within. It might be a good idea to open the document and follow along as you view this webinar. This webinar is designed to familiarize teachers and school leaders with the department's distance learning guidance for the inquiryHub Biology Prototype, Unit 1, Bend 1. The department also has plans to release distance learning support for all 3 inquiryHub biology units. We'll start with an overview of the purpose and design considerations for these resources. Before we dive in, note that the target audience for this webinar are teachers and school leaders who have already engaged in typical inquiryHub training. This webinar does not replace that training, and as such, if you have not received training for the inquiryHub biology curriculum, you should not proceed with this webinar. This guidance was designed to support continuous learning for biology students in a distance learning or hybrid school environment. The first bend of the first unit is available now, linked within the PDF of this presentation and published on the Science Planning page on the Louisiana Believes website. Guidance for this unit, as well as upcoming guidance for additional units, will contain links to essential inquiryHub unit resources, overall unit and lesson-by-lesson guidance, and printable lesson slideshows and supporting documents. The table shown here lists the premises upon which this guidance was designed. No lessons have been omitted. Adaptations are pedagogical and alter the inquiryHub curriculum only to the extent required by distance learning environment. This guidance has been designed for 100% virtual learning and will need to be adapted for other models, such as hybrid models where learning takes place both in person and virtually. In order for this high-quality science curriculum to be most effective, students need to engage in a live environment with teachers and their fellow students. And every effort should be made by school systems to ensure access to a device and internet for distance learning. This unit design is based on approximately 3 virtual classes per week. In the event of a hybrid learning environment, the components that take place during virtual classes should be prioritized for in-person learning. This guidance was also designed to be broadly applied with any digital platform so that teachers may use what is available and most familiar to them. Teachers should still be using typical inquiryHub curriculum resources in combination with this digital learning guidance. We'll now take a closer look at the guidance document for the prototype unit. This would be a good time to pause and skim through the prototype unit linked within this PDF on your own. We'll begin with the guidance overview. This section contains links to the inquiryHub resources for the unit, as well as remote learning resources aimed specifically at inquiryHub routines. This will allow teachers to make adjustments based on their individual school learning environment and the needs of their students. Let's take a look at some of the language used in these remote learning resources and throughout this webinar. These resources offer suggestions for adapting each routine to a remote learning model. Within these resources and throughout this webinar, the terms synchronous and asynchronous will be used to describe the activities that students will be engaging in. Activities that take place in a live environment, such as a virtual class on a digital conferencing platform, will be described as synchronous, while those that take place over time and require students to work independently will be described as asynchronous. Following the guidance overview is a section called Norming Language. This introduces teachers to the ways in which inquiryHub has been adapted to a remote learning environment, including specific ideas for addressing equitability for students without internet. Some of the work in each unit is designed to be done asynchronously before or after virtual classes, and some will be addressed in a synchronous class setting. Decisions about the learning models for school are still being made, and many districts are considering a blended model where students will learn in person on some days and virtually on others. In this case, teachers should prioritize any activities listed for virtual class meetings for in-person learning. Since the basic model for each lesson builds upon the outline of pre-work, virtual class, and post-work, we're going to take a deeper look at these terms. Some examples of the tasks that students will be asked to engage in during these activities are listed here. Pre-work and post-work activities are designed to be done by students independently. In contrast, places in the lesson where discourse is necessary for sense-making have been prioritized in virtual classes. Moving into some additional labels in the norming language. Lesson slideshows are designed to be used by students before, during, and after virtual class meetings. There are designated places within the slideshows where students are asked to complete activities. These slideshows can be shared in small chunks or in their entirety at the beginning of a lesson and can be turned in at multiple points throughout the lesson for the teacher to review. All relevant documents, videos, and other resources have been linked within each slideshow and can be easily accessed by students when shared electronically. These slideshows may also be printed for students who do not have home internet access. Any activity designated as an assignment will take place outside of the lesson slideshow and may require teachers to create something new, post, or modify a resource that has been provided. In addition to the previously mentioned activities, discussion boards and home investigations may also appear in the unit guidance. These are designed to provide additional opportunities to engage students with science practices and in discourse with one another, so teachers will not have to schedule virtual class meetings every day. Discussion boards are used to engage students in asynchronous discourse, and home investigations allow students an opportunity for independent, hands-on learning. In a blended learning model, these activities where students are engaging in discussion or in hands-on science should be prioritized for in-person meetings in much the same way that activities for virtual classes would be. Let's move in to the lesson guidance for each individual lesson. A lesson overview is provided for each lesson in a unit. It contains information about materials students will need and additional printed materials or files that students who do not have home internet will need. On the guidance document, links to all resources are embedded for teacher planning purposes. Any videos or links included in the lesson slideshow will only appear in the list of materials for students who do not have home internet, since the slideshows are intended to be shared electronically whenever possible. There are also reminders for teachers to record class meetings and provide them for students who cannot attend live. A table for each lesson with specific guidance follows the lesson overview. In the first column, the activity is listed from the norming language in which students will be engaging for each chunk of the lesson. The relevant slides from the lesson slideshow that contain resources and activities are listed as well. Additionally, the designated parts within the inquiryHub learning plan are listed here. The second and third columns contain brief descriptions of the student and teacher actions for each lesson component in a remote learning environment. Notice that when the teacher and student columns are merged, it means that teachers and students are interacting synchronously in a virtual class meeting. Let's take a look at some of the lesson resources. Lesson slideshows are the most important lesson resource provided for each lesson. This informational slide appears at the beginning of each lesson-specific slideshow. Places where students are being given directions are highlighted in light blue, and places where students must type within a slide are clearly labeled. Each slide is also numbered in the bottom right corner so that it may be connected with the lesson components described in the lesson guidance document. Here we point out a key feature in the lesson slideshow: clear labeling from the norming language that gives students specific directions about when activities should be completed. Since not every teacher will use the same platform and may be following different schedules based on their school or district's decisions around what school will look like this year, there are places within the slideshows that allow customization based on individual needs. An essential part of the inquiryHub lessons is an incremental modeling tracker. This has been built into the lesson slideshows at each stage when students will be asked to revisit. Teachers may choose to remove these slides and create a separate assignment for these so that students can revisit them in the same document to revise and track progress throughout the lesson. Let's take a look at a broader overview of guidance provided. In addition to lesson-by-lesson guidance, the document also contains a unit overview by bend. This is found at the beginning of the document and houses all of the information contained in the lesson guidance for each lesson in the bend. Notice that links are included for all of the lesson slideshows and additional documents. The bend overview also lists the lessons in which virtual classes may occur. Remember that lessons may take more than one day. Virtual class meetings can occur in almost every lesson. However, teachers may modify the schedule or replace virtual class meetings with asynchronous discussion boards when meeting synchronously with students is not possible. In addition, there are some lessons that are designed only for asynchronous assignments listed here. At the bottom of the bend overview, suggestions for formative and summative assessment opportunities are listed. Now that we've looked at the lesson resources and the guidance document, we'll move on to the release schedule for other inquiryHub units. The preliminary timeline shown here is based on having materials ready for teachers to use during the 2020 to 2021 school year and is subject to change. If you have any questions or feedback related to the distance learning resources outlined in this webinar, please reach out by email to stem@la.gov. Thank you for your time.